we're getting to government bailout territory here.
And we start with one from Discord from a username that I cannot pronounce.
I have thoughts.
Good, because it's a podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Traxion Control Podcast, your weekly dose of racing, video games and sim racing. I'm Tom, joined by Tom and John as ever, and we're going to go straight into our first big topic, which is reboots or revivals of older games or game series that we'd like to see done well. The reason for this is Carmageddon Rogue Shift releases this week, and our review has gone live, and it's a 5 out of 10. This is an old series that's come back. It had some fans and some controversies, and the new one is a bit weird, a bit different, but also just lacking in several areas. So now let's discuss games that we'd like done in a similar way, but actually in a good way, that don't exist anymore. John, hit us with the first suggestion.
Do you know, there's always one franchise that comes to mind with this particular question for me, and it's PGR, Project Gotham Racing.
This was the one I was going to say. Let's discuss together then.
Well, that means it's more valid, right? Two of us are thinking the same thing. It's there. I mean, there's so many franchises I could go into here, but we'll start with PGR. I mean, for me, the feeling that it invoked, collecting cars, putting them in the garage, progressing through the systems, the fact that they had the Nordschleife on there when a lot of other games didn't, and just the exotica that you could actually drive further down the line in the game. There were lots of reasons why it was enjoyable to play for me at the time. I don't know if it's mainly nostalgia, I'll be honest with you, but that's why the part of your question covering whether the game needs to be done well is relevant here, because I think PGR done well in the modern day, there is space for that. PGR not done well would be a disaster.
Just quickly get people up to speed who might not have heard of it, but there are 4 mainline Project Gotham racing games, all published by Microsoft across Xbox and Xbox 360. But if you want to be a nerd about it, there are 5 Project Gotham games, because there was a Dreamcast game called Metropolis Street Racer, which was the same development team and the same kudos system and the same sort of street circuit thing. Basically, it is that. However, when the Sega Dreamcast died, Microsoft took up a lot of developers, teams, franchises, series from that to make the first Xbox, but they just couldn't call it Metropolis Street Racer. So you could argue it's 5. And then that studio was never owned by Microsoft, and Activision bought them. And so they tried again with another series, which was Blur, which I've been playing recently, which I bought from Computer Exchange for £10 this Xbox, or £8 this 360 version. So I would agree with you, Project Gotham Racing, but I'd also like to see Blur, which, when I'm playing it now, this is like a Project Gotham Racing game, sort of arcade-ish, accessible handling with licensed cars, but it had Mario Kart power-ups. It shouldn't work. It really does. And it's the progression of both this and PGR when you're playing them, which is good fun. Just good fun. It's very simple, but there's a dearth of gamepad-focused racing games with solid production values at the minute.
You know, when you say Project Gotham Racing, the first thing that comes to mind is that beautiful red Ferrari on the cover. I feel like it was back in the days where you only had 2 or 3 games. Well, when I grew up, you'd only have 2 or 3 games. If you were lucky, you go to a friend's house, they might have 3 or 4 games, and you can picture the covers. Like as soon as I hear Project Gotham Racing, I just think of that Ferrari, which I know that both of you will know F50. The name, model, engine size, fuel consumption rate of, and it's just I wasn't an Xbox guy. I was a dirty PlayStation boy when I was growing up. But Project Gotham Racing was one that I always played at one of my best friends' houses a lot, and I did love it. However, this guy, for once, is going down the sim route with my nostalgic title that I would love to bring back, and it comes back to the first racing game I ever played, 1998 TOCA 2 touring cars, which I played on my PlayStation, and it was fantastic. It was the first time I think I started to appreciate liveries. I had favorite liveries for the first time. I started to study who the drivers were. And I just remember it. This is going to sound really daft, right? Because I would have been 9, But I just remember thinking, God, the handling's good. And if we played it now, we would look at it and be like, why are these pixels so big on the screen?
Well.
And none of this makes any sense. And bear in mind, the PlayStation didn't even have a joystick. It was just a D-pad. So you were either all left or no left, like or all right or all right. It was right. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And touring cars generally, I feel like there aren't enough titles that really champion them. Like I've occasionally done some touring cars in Race Room and iRacing, and every time I've done it, I've loved it. But I just keep forgetting to go back to it because I just want TOCA 3 touring cars to come out next week. That'd be great.
So many parallels with me though as well, because that was such a big game for me growing up on PC. It was probably my first proper hands-on experience of a racing game that I would play thoroughly and go all the way through. I even played split screen with my dad at the time, and we never got past the first round, to be honest, because it was pretty tough. But also playing PGR, at friends' houses on Xbox and stuff. It's amazing how in sync those two experiences seem to be. But I think TOCA Touring Cars 2 was just a much more polished version of the first TOCA Touring Cars game. That's the one that gets it for me. It was just everything about it at the time just felt like peak of what sim racing was. And you do play it now, and it's incredibly sensitive, the steering, and it's incredibly darty, and it's all a bit strange. But
I bet it's
just
awful.
Yeah, but it's just like it's the Tiff Needell voiceover, it's the cheat codes, it's the, as you say, the culture of British touring cars, and really getting excited about the teams and the drivers at the time. I was the same as you. Nigel Mansell's his name's in the game in the driver info, but you can't pick his car. That always used to bother me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's so many elements of it, and of course we almost saw a new TOCA touring car game in it spiritually in the form of the Motorsport Games British touring car game, which never happened.
Yeah, we'll come back to that later because actually there's a community question about that, so we'll discuss it further. But I agree that TOCA would be a great to be revived in some form because it wasn't just BTCC; it had like all the side stuff and the silly cheats, like you say, and also PGR is just simple progression in a racing game, accessible driving, amazing. We've also got a suggestion from Martin Big, our writer on the website, and one of our writers. He said, "Driver, please." Predictable, if you know Martin, because we need more gritty car chases games that make you feel like Steve McQueen. Hard to disagree with that. And also, I think we should honourable mention to Jeff Crummond Grand Prix because a dedicated Formula One simulation would be amazing. And they are being re-released on PC via Steam at some point this year, but there's all sorts of weird AI descriptions and images, so who knows how they'll turn out.
I also have an honourable mention, please, for the Simpsons hit and run game, which I sunk hours and hours and hours into. But I don't know if you necessarily go with Simpsons hit and run 2, or if you do Family Guy hit and run, or Archer, if you maybe that's a bit niche, hit and run, or American Dad hit and run.
You need Springfield. We need Springfield.
Or BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah, it was so good. Again, more parallels, Tom. It's scary. I'm going to throw out a very quick run of honourable mentions, and then I will open the floor to come and fight me for it. Can we already say Forza Motorsport, or is that too on the nose? Maybe that's a bit soon. Burnout is the obvious one. Everyone always talks about Burnout, a new proper Burnout game, which we almost kind of saw spiritually with Recreation, but it kind of missed the mark in some ways as well. I want to say TOCA Race Driver, although, again, we did get Grid Legends, which in many ways can sort of trace back to TOCA Race Driver spiritually, so that's something we can debate. And the final one, where you're talking about Blur earlier on, Tom, Split Second.
Yeah.
We've always said this, but I want to see another Split Second game, and I think there are no games that do that job as well as Split Second did that I've experienced, at least in the last maybe 5-10 years.
Oh yes, it's a travesty. We did have a YouTube comment where it was like, you cannot mention Blur without mentioning Split Second at the same time. So we've done it. Thanks, John.
Yeah, no
and weirdly, I think they were released within the same week as well when they first came out. So they're intrinsically linked.
Burnout, Crash Mode. I'll be honest. Crash Mode in Burnout was my favorite thing, and so I would like an honourable mention to more games in the future that include big lorries full of logs. I just like whenever I think back to my early years of gaming, like that, there's a particular kind of scene that I picture, and it's you're in a car and you're hurtling down like a slipway off of a freeway into a like a T junction, and then there'll just be the big lorry there with the big like stack of logs on the back, and you hit it and the logs go everywhere and you get points for damage. It was I think as a young like 10-year-old boy. Like there's nothing better than just causing that sort of destruction.
Have you heard of BeamNG, sir? I think that's almost it doesn't do the same thing in the same way, but with obviously the challenges you get in Beam with the damage model and also the mods, you can sort of do a modern day version of that. It's not Burnout.
Also, there is Recreation, cool, which is a spiritual successor to Burnout that came out last year, but it doesn't quite nail the brief, and it has crash-ish mode, but not the crash mode that we all would love to see. There's probably some IP rights involved in that, but I just wanted to be topical. Wish that team all the best because they've had to move to Patreon to help support the game and release the updates. And there might be something like more intrinsic to crash mode on the way. We'll have to see. Anyway, this leads us on to this week. We are going to return with the quiz. It might not be every week, but we are this week. John is currently 2-1 up.
Oh, God.
So this time, to keep topical, there was a recent update to Gran Turismo 7, which added 3 cars, 2 of which were race cars. One was a Xiaomi Su7. And therefore, we're inspired. There are going to be 3 questions now about Gran Turismo specifically. First one is a nice and easy one, he says, hoping. Can you name the development team or company who make the Gran Turismo games? Write your answers down. Write down your answer.
I feel like this should be easy.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Don't overthink this one.
I'm typing, not writing. Sorry, guys.
He's Googling.
Yeah.
I'm using a pen just to avoid the typing.
Same.
Okay, I'm really worried that I've overthought that.
Okay. Second one is to the nearest million. How many total game sales has the Gran Turismo franchise sold? And they announced this last year, and the number was as of June 2025. So it's actually sold more than this, but we don't know how many more. So there was a big announcement last year with a big number. Closest person gets it correct.
I think I'm a 0 away. That'll make sense when we get to the answers. And by the way, Tom, just thank you. These are much better questions because I was getting ready for which Finnish rally driver in 1986 was colorblind. This is much more up my street.
Amazing. Yeah, don't mention Finnish rally drivers. I nearly went off on a tangent there. Okay.
Yeah, I was literally chomping at the bit. I'm like, nope, not going there.
It's because John knows the answer. It's like, I can name all the colorblind Finnish rally drivers between 1940 and the present day.
All right. Final one. And this is tricky, so the closest one wins. I don't expect either of you to know it, but how many cars are there currently in Gran Turismo 7 including DLC and updates? And I'll better get the calculator out just in case. Try and quickly work this out. Okay. Right. First question was, who developed Gran Turismo? Which studio? What's the name of the studio? Let's go Tom Bunton for the answer first.
Polyphony Digital.
Correct. John?
Polyphony Digital.
All right.
I nearly went with, is it Sony Interactive?
Well,
yeah.
You could argue that.
Because
that's the parent
This is
company.
why I was thinking I was overthinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Tom might be trying to catch us out there.
No.
So did I. That's why I was like, I'm not sure about this one. I don't trust him.
No, all good. I was looking for Polyphony Digital. Right. So how many millions has the Gran Turismo franchise sold to date as of June 2025? John, what did you have written down?
I have written down 100 million.
Tom?
200 million.
Okay. It's John, I'm afraid.
Bugger.
John, it's actually 100 million. That was the thing.
That we know of.
There's more than that.
That we know of. I think they could be sandbagging.
Will it have sold another 100 million between June and now? Probably not.
If there's no way of proving it, then you can't give me the point over Tom, right?
No.
We only need them to have sold 50 million and one for me to be right here.
Moving on.
What are these notes you're making, Tom?
Trying to keep track of how many points you both got. Right. How many cars has Gran Turismo 7 got now? I consulted Gran Turismo Wiki for this. And they officially say 568. So, John, which number did you write down?
Oh, I have 559 down.
Tom?
Okay, I was going because I thought, oh God, I was close. And then John comes in with the, oh, I think I'm close, and was one away. I put
Well, that would have been close, and I
460.
thought you would have got that with 460. But yeah, the point goes to John. So that is.
That's a valid effort. It is a tricky one. I thought I might have been 100 out.
So it's 5-2 so far to John, and we'll have a hiatus next week on the quiz, and we'll keep it going.
Miserable.
No, good effort.
Utterly miserable.
Favorite part of
Yeah.
the podcast.
And
drop it.
For everyone listening, I think you can maybe leave a comment on Spotify these days, although they may be tied to a review. But try that, and also leave a comment on if you're watching on YouTube with this question, and no Googling, please, audience. Could you name the first 2 license tracks for Gran Turismo? They were both in Gran Turismo 2 because the first Gran Turismo was entirely fictional. And we'll answer that question, if you don't cheat, next week.
Oh.
I hope you're all enjoying this video. Just a quick message though for those of you using Fanatec equipment. Maybe you're looking to upgrade, maybe you're looking for new peripherals. If you use the affiliate link down in the description below, it will take you to the Fanatec website. It won't make a difference to your experience, but what it will do is help support this Traxion GG YouTube channel and of course our website. And that will help us make more content like this in the future. Back to the video.
It's now time for full send or dead end. And I'm going to explain the format again to remind myself more than anything. I'm going to read out a statement. Then John and Tom are going to say either full send, good, agree with the statement, or dead end, bad, disagree with the statement. We'll then go back and justify our reasons. So the first one is inspired by Steve Myers of iRacing, who tweeted about, or posted on X, as we should say, wow, the progress for the first phase of the iRacing career mode. I've seen it and I'm blown away. There's more to it than that. So, full send or dead end. Even serious sim racers will enjoy single-player career modes. Tom?
Full send.
I would agree with that. John?
Full send for me.
All right. Then, the next one. And this is not really sim racing, a racing game delayed, except it might be. Will Grand Theft Auto 6 be delayed again? John?
Full send.
Tom?
Dead end.
Oh, okay. I think dead end as well. We'll come back to this. And finally, between Project Motor Racing and Rennsport, controversial opinion time, Rennsport has a greater chance of recovery. Do we agree or disagree? Full send or dead end? Tom?
Dead end.
John?
Full send.
I have thoughts.
Good, because it's a podcast. I'm going to say full send. Okay. So we'll go back to the first one. I think we're all in agreement and said full send. We agree with this statement that even serious sim racers will enjoy single-player career modes.
This, for me, is a full send, right? As a, somewhat serious sim. You could be a serious sim racer without being a fast sim racer, I hope, right? So I'll put myself in that category. But, I've invested in this life of sim racing. I love it. I sim race quite a lot. But I'm an iRacing guy, right? iRacing is my go-to. Do it all the time. However, you always need a good 2 or 3 hours, I think, for an iRacing session, because if you're going to load into an official series, ranked, you don't want to just go straight into a race. You need to practice, right? Otherwise, you're going to hemorrhage your iRating. But sometimes you just want to have a race. So I think for iRacing specifically, a single-player career mode will allow people like myself to just jump in for an hour, just do a practice quality race as part of some sort of ongoing story campaign, whatever it is, and enjoy it without the need to either just spend the whole time practicing or risk your iRating. So I'm saying full send.
I do actually think Tom has hit the nail on the head from my perspective as well. It's an alternative when you don't want to put the time sink into an online race, not just the time sink into the practicing and the actual race itself, but you're also very much set with your times. So, a race starts at X, whether it's on the hour, half past, quarter past. A career mode race, you can jump in, you can pause it, right? You can do one lap, you can pause it, you can go and have dinner, you can do whatever. There's a lot more flexibility there, but that's just one small point. I think there are so many reasons why career modes are enjoyable. There's less pressure. You can afford to make mistakes without influencing someone else's race, which is great for people that are learning and also people that just want to have fun and not, worry about actually upsetting someone when trying to just have a little bit of fun on a game. And also just for me, the immersion of experiencing that career-like style situation. You can set a difficulty level. You can have people to race against that are similar speed to you. And I like the cutscenes. I like the idea of progression where you don't know what's coming next and a little bit of unpredictability. So for me, yes, you can love sim racing, as I do, and you can also love career modes, as I do.
It's an interesting point, this. I think, well, we'll touch upon it with a community question, actually, but a career mode can also help people get into the game and educate and teach them about certain cars, their characteristics. You have a greater opportunity to put interstitials or videos that help get people into the swing of things. And so, especially for an iRacing or a Le Mans Ultimate, where their main ethos or focus of the game is competitive online multiplayer, they've got single player racing, but this is another step on that can help people. But there's also the flip side, which the reason I posed this, even serious sim races, very specifically, is there is a cohort of very passionate people who are purists. And sim purists are before ranked multiplayer was really a thing other than iRacing. And they want to load up R Factor 2 or the first set of Corsa, and they just want to drive a car around a circuit and try and get quicker. Sandbox sim racers, let's say. And I think they would hate the idea of a career mode. But I think if it's done well, they would still enjoy it, because a sense of progression and creating your own narrative in your head is taps into that little bit of video gameness, but you're still using a sim in a serious setting.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it, and we'll see how these progress over time, and maybe we should talk more about it next week. So, Grand Theft Auto 6, will it be delayed again?
Yes. If I had to put money on it, I think... And there's no real reason for that, honestly. There unfortunately was a situation in the studio in Scotland with the fire, which happened quite recently, and that didn't necessarily cause any setbacks that we know of, but it's not an ideal situation to happen. And I just think that because the game is so huge and so big, and we've already seen numerous delays, there's every chance it could happen again. Honestly, it's more of a guess, right? It's a bit of a game, this, but I don't know. I'm comfortable saying, do you know what? If I had to put money on it, I would probably say it's more likely to be delayed than not.
I'm going to disagree. I feel like we're getting to government bailout territory here. I feel like if GTA 6 doesn't come out soon, there's going to be civil unrest on the streets. There will be marches in the town squares of every city from London to Edinburgh. I'm obviously being a little bit dramatic. A lot bit dramatic, but I just don't think they could get away with it again. I think they will invest everything they have left to get this game out again. And also, the last delay was a long delay, and I think that is specifically to avoid we'll do it in 3 months and then we'll have to kind of make it 4 months. It's like, well, let's push it all the way back, and then we've got more time for polish. This is me being really optimistic. I'm also very aware that across Grid Finder and Traxion, I feel like nearly every single member of the team is about to take 2 weeks off when this game comes out. So it's going to be a cultural event.
Yeah, I think it's a dead end again, because I think it's been delayed too many times and too high profile now, and it'll get to the point where people will really start getting fed up. And the reason we bring it up in the sim racing podcast is it affects sim racing because literally no one on Earth... Is it currently scheduled for November this year? No one on Earth will release a video game in that month.
No.
Yeah. Right? And it affects their development and scheduling. And last year, there was... I think Rennsport went on record and said, oh, well, we know what we would like to release, but it depends on some other big game with 6 in the title. And then that was delayed and things... So it really does affect racing video games and sim racing. I also think that Forza Horizon 6 has had a long gestation, and it's not very easy to say, well, if Grand Theft Auto's there, we'll release earlier. But it's somehow factored in.
It's the only game delay I've ever known be covered by the BBC. I'm fairly sure there was a BBC News notification about this game being delayed again. And I think it actually goes wider than gaming. You can imagine like your Deliverers and Uber Eats are all expecting a bumper month. The month that comes out, right? As everyone just hibernates indoors. Like it's gonna be like the Olympics.
At this rate, GTA 7 is going to come out before GTA 6, I think. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Tom with his investment brain on there, good to see. And it is the biggest entertainment launch of a generation. Irrespective of films, TV shows, we should move on. So we posed. Between Project Motor Racing and Rennsport has a greater chance of recovery. Controversial, this could go either way. Not sure myself.
Yeah. I'm not sure either, and I think that's the second of the 3 full sender dead ends that I've actually felt somewhere in the middle and just had to pick one or the other. But listen, I've chosen my hill. I will now die on. I said Rennsport does have more of a chance of survival than PMR. I just think that the online system on Rennsport you can already have such a good fun race on there, and I feel like the Rennsport team have been working for a long time. There are, of course, many elements to improve upon, but I just feel like the core experience there is closer to something that I would find myself coming back to more regularly. And I have no idea if that's going to be true or not. I could argue this either way, I think, but that's just what my gut told me in that moment.
I have 3 reasons, which I've just written down, as to why I believe that PMR has the greater chance of recovery. Now, you two are going with your gut, which is absolutely fine. I'm a data-driven guy, and I have some data on this, right? So I think 3 weeks ago, I wrote the Traxion Control newsletter, which if you don't subscribe to, traxion.gg/newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter where I dive into whatever the trending topic is for a particular week. Or if there is no new game, then I pick a kind of a topic of conversation which is relatively industry focused. And I think 3 weeks ago, I focused on essentially the revival of a few brands in sim racing. One was Fanatec, the other was Motorsport Games, and how they brought LMU back from the brink after the disaster of the NASCAR games. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point was, I made a comparison between how Fanatec and Motorsport Games have had this sort of character arc, and with after a period of having a pretty low stock, pretty poor reputation within the industry, they brought it back, right? Fanatec came out with all these new products. Motorsport Games came out with LMU, which I think is widely revered as a top tier sim racing title. On the other hand, we've had big, loud brands like PMR and Giants, and then Rennsport come out, and there's been some flops. And then we had about 12,000 people reading that newsletter, and I did a vote at the bottom of the newsletter, and the vote was exactly this question: of PMR and Rennsport, which is the most likely to have a resurgence in 2026? And over 70% of people said PMR. Right, so that is my data-driven point. That's one of the reasons I chose it. There's 2 other reasons which I'll rattle through very quickly. One is, I think PMR has a greater pedigree for. And the team around PMR has a greater pedigree for console versions, which is really important when it comes to sales and reinvestment, etc., versus Rennsport. And then the final point would be mods. We saw how Assetto Corsa, to this day, is an incredibly successful game 15 years after its launch. Right, I think by PMR leaning into mods so heavily, actually, as long as the base game is okay, if you have an active modding community, you can keep bringing out exciting content, exciting community races, etc., with different content that the studio, which is now a lot smaller, don't have to produce themselves. So those are the reasons why I think PMR has a great chance of recovery.
Interesting. Here's why I disagree.
Yeah, you first, me next.
Yeah. So I went full send. No, that's all very valid points. I think PMR has a larger potential audience, and you're right. There's a history and a legacy there to the people behind the scenes that can get stuff done. I don't disagree with anything you said, actually. But the reason my gut says Rennsport has a better chance is some of the fundamentals work better. GT3 cars drive better still now after PMR's update. The collision detection is better. The damage model is better. And they're kind of like key things to build upon. That I'm slightly concerned that you can't necessarily completely reinvent those once you've already released the game.
But highly esports focused, i.e., maybe they do. Maybe they serve much better a smaller audience.
Yeah, maybe. I think the AI is catastrophically bad in Rennsport. The progressions, but then it's not good in PMR either. So I mean, Rennsport's is worse, but. Yeah, I just think there's some core fundamentals, mainly because allegedly there's some ISI and definitely there's some tech that's very similar to ISI motor going on underneath the skin of Rennsport. That some of the fundamentals are more polished, even though both games, and I cannot believe both games came out around the same time and were 5 out of 10s.
I think what I was essentially trying to say, and maybe didn't word it too well, is along the same lines as you there, Tom. I think it's easier to add really cool and interesting content to a solid small package than it is to add a good package around good content. And that's why I think Rennsport is... Rennsport's got a lot more to build on, but it's almost a safer, smaller platform, whereas I think PMR's gone all in on a lot of things, and there's fundamentally a lot of issues that almost need to be reversed and then recreated. And obviously with the drama surrounding the launch, but also obviously the redundancies, which are never good to hear, there's a lot of instability. And I'm not saying Rennsport's probably the most stable situation either, but that's kind of where I'm going with that. And just one more thing as well on the mod front. Yes, PMR went very heavy in the mods, but really so did Rennsport. I know it's not been talked about as much recently, but there was a whole thing about the mod marketplace with Rennsport. We actually tried mods on Rennsport a few years ago, and they were pretty good at that point. And now, obviously, things are a bit quieter, and they haven't been talked. Well, I thought it felt good. It worked. It was there.
No. I'm not disagreeing with that, but none of those mods that we tried have been released.
Exactly. So this is what I mean. So they're there. So there's something missing. There's something that's gone awry from what the plan was a few years ago to some degree. That's why I'm thinking, well, there's clearly a bit of potential there that's maybe untapped. So I don't necessarily think PMR is in a better spot mod-wise.
All right, so to wrap up this week, we're going to go through just 2 community questions that you have asked us via many different forms. On social media, it's at TractionGG. You can always send us a comment for a future podcast question, but also traction.gg/Discord. Join our Discord. In there's a podcast-specific bit. At any point, throw a question in for the team, and we'll put them into the catalogue to cycle through for future podcast episodes. And we start with one from Discord from a username that I cannot pronounce. Anyway, thank you very much for your question. So, why don't sims have proper tutorials and documentation for systems, both race rules and procedures and how the cars work and things like pit stop settings? I know a lot of people have been caught out by LMU's Le Mans Ultimates, fuel filling system, virtual energy at pit stops, for example.
Including John.
Now, good, John. I will go first on this. I fully agree with this statement and sentiment. There is too much reliance in serious sim racing titles to have to Google things or watch YouTube videos or find stuff out. That's great.
Great for us.
With the content creator cap on, because we have to do guides and stuff. I know one of Dave Cam's top videos is like a beginner's guide to iRacing and the black box and stuff. But I don't think there's anything wrong with including better tutorials that are optional. Now, on the flip side to that, sim racing purists, going back to those again, they don't like the fact that if there would be help and advice, they just want a pure sim where you don't even, you have to learn stuff and you don't want to be handheld. But I think for the business, I agree with this statement. More tutorials, please, that are optional.
I think it's good to learn the actions of how to do things without necessarily needing to know the best strategies for them, right? Like, so I would like to know what a pit stop procedure works like and how to do it, but I don't necessarily need to be told that, I recommend pitting 2 or 3 times in a race. I think you're absolutely spot on. It's really good for channels like Traxion GG and websites for us to be able to write guides, but that's not what we want. We want the games to be able to explain it clear enough so that you don't have to go and Google it and watch YouTube videos. I also wonder if it's more a reflection on the timescale of video game production these days, in that so many of these titles are really pushing to try and meet deadlines and reach a working title. And even to some points, we see day one patches is almost like a given now. I wonder if that's never high enough up the priority list, and therefore only some games have it, and that's games that are well and truly under control with a long time to go, and we just don't see as many of those these days.
I wonder if there is a level of intentionality here, because taking the iRacing example, when I first started getting into iRacing, I watched 2 channels religiously. One was Samsoid, a guy called David Sampson, really cool iRacing creator who did a lot of lap guides, but he would also do guides to black boxes and pit stop strategies and fueling. Like, he even did a thing. It was kind of intense actually. He did a thing where it was like how to work out your brake bias, and he was like, he was like, obviously there's a ton of caveats here. Pressures and temperatures of the track and blah 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 blah. But by and large, if you go down a straight, hit the brakes so that you lock up, then go into the iRacing replay, look side on, and you'll see whether the front or rear axle locks up first. There you go. He went into loads of detail about how to really enjoy iRacing, right? And for that reason, in my first, let's say, 3 months of being an iRacer, I probably spent more hours with those creators than I did on the game, which has led me to be a multi-year, super invested iRacer over time, because I feel like it's more than just a game, because I know all these creators around it. And so I wonder if the studios think, well, we could go to the lengths of making tutorials, or we could let 50 to 100 creators all do their own versions of tutorials, all bringing in new members, potential new subscribers in the case of iRacing, and use that as a way of building community around the game, so that everyone is in their own little individual box, in their own little individual sphere, learning it one-on-one with the computer. Maybe if the only way you can learn is with other people, you're going to make a much longer tail community, perhaps. Or maybe that wasn't intentional at all, but that has just happened, and they've gone, oh, actually, that's really handy. There's no point in us doing tutorials because the community's done it for us. Why don't we just do new cars and tracks?
Yeah, that's me, Mr. Cynical over here, agreeing with the latter part of your description there. I just, like, for me, with Le Mans Ultimate's a good example. That game is one of my favorite sims at the moment. It's lots of fun to play. However, I'm going to criticize it in a way here, because despite there being, I'm sure, some virtual energy description somewhere to explain how these things work, when you first do a race and you run out of virtual energy, or you get a penalty, and trying to understand how fuel ratio versus virtual energy works, it's not that clear. I'm not saying there isn't anything there to help you, but you just feel a bit lost as a racer. And I think that's really off-putting for someone who wants to jump in and have a fun sim race, especially a daily race, like a quick fire 20-minute GT3 race, to be like being disqualified or getting a massive penalty for running out of virtual energy on race 1 because it's really complicated. Why isn't there just a bit more of a clean tutorial there?
Because realism, John.
Yeah, but drivers don't have to do this themselves. They have a team around them that tell them how to do it, right? Like, I'm as a professional racing driver,
I agree,
don't
by the
need
way.
to be tracing my virtual energy number.
No, I think there should be like an optional video that explains it all in easy terms with nice graphics in the game. And also, I suppose, final point on this is, I think an element of this happens because we've moved away from physical media to digital media in the PC sim racing space. I know that Martin will marmalize me for saying that we've done this when people still buy lots of Switch 2 and PS5 games physically. But even then, they don't come with one of these, which I'm holding up a game manual for TOCA 2 touring cars leading back to the start of the episode, which you would leaf through and explains what a sprint race is, for example. You know, if you've never heard of one, or car setup screen, how to start a race, and the different types of events you can do. So this is all disappeared, although mercifully so has the TOCA 2 hotline, which is a premium rate phone number, 50p per minute to get even more help. That's where Samside comes in, because he's free. Right. And final point to wrap up here. This is from TFCN on our Discord, who said, who do you think should make a BTCC game and why? As I've heard, iRacing may be linked or something. I just want to say this is a great point. I don't think iRacing is linked anyway, but that's maybe mishearing something. But who would make a BTCC game and why?
Selfishly, for me, it would be iRacing, right? Just because I'm already an iRacer. I already love that ecosystem. I would love to do touring car races, like more and more touring car races on iRacing, officially licensed would be fantastic. That's a really boring answer, because I'm just saying, well, I already like iRacing. I'm already subscribed to it, so it'd just be easier to not have to download anything else.
Yeah, the thing is, well, you could also say that in terms of making a dedicated BTCC game, it would have to be a separate thing. But iRacing is making IndyCar and NASCAR dedicated games, aren't they? So they've already got the infrastructure.
If iRacing is building single player modes, does it have to be would it have to be a separate game?
Well,
is there any reason why iRacing, if they're going to have single player modes within the launcher, why couldn't iRacing have it, in theory, obviously putting everything else aside, like facts for now, why couldn't they have, a touring car section and an IndyCar section? Like, why? Maybe even in the future, a Formula One section, officially licensed, but it's all on the same launcher. All of those cars are available for their rank racing, but all of them have campaign modes.
Sure.
Within it.
Ultima Balista 2 does that. But in terms of a dedicated game, there's also a difference between, like, iRacing is obviously a sim. A game will be more accessible. It'll be on consoles. But yeah, you're right. It's totally possible. And I think that was also one of Motorsport Games' plans originally was to have something like where you have like a sim and then you buy like a supercars pack or a BTCC pack or an IndyCar thing. So yeah, maybe that's what happens in the future. John?
Yeah, sadly, I want to say Codemasters, but in the old form, and it just doesn't. I just don't. I mean, it's unrealistic nowadays, which is gutting to say. But I would want Codemasters because we can already drive touring cars that are very realistic through Raceroom and iRacing, and also through R Factor 2, of course, which I still think a dedicated Motorsport Games BTCC game would be great. Might lack in single player features though, and that's why I said Codemasters. I think in terms of an accessible pick up and play game for a large audience, they do a great job with the Formula One games, have done a great job with touring car games in the past, with Grid, all these kind of things. So for me, a wider audience perspective, Codemasters. Now, realistically, maybe Kunos Simulazione because of Assetto Corsa Competizione. If you had ACC but with British touring cars, maybe a bit more single player development, I think there's a really solid platform there for a good BTCC game. They've proven they can do it, but it takes time.
So I agree with all these sentiments. I've got so many thoughts on this. I will save it for another time. But basically, I don't think it'll ever happen. Sorry, TFCN. I would love it to happen, but the BTCC in the current form they quote many millions of TV viewers. That's old-fashioned numbers. I think it's 10 years behind in terms of its digital outreach. So I think in terms of trying to get a global audience to buy a game outside of Britain, like I don't see that as being a successful title. As much as it pains me. However, there is one thing that will completely usurp my entire argument to myself, and that is in Raceroom, they brought back Super Touring Cars as DLC, and it's been very, very popular for them. So if there was a BTCC game that Alan Gow would allow, it has the current season and also the 1990s stuff, that will sell worldwide because there's a nostalgia factor there and rose-tinted spectacles. And therefore, I would like Motorsport Games to get its act together, hopefully, because it does have the license for a BTC. It has the ability to do it, but it's non-exclusive. And we're still also waiting for some R Factor 2 DLC for the last few seasons, which I believe there's some delays on both sides there. So, long way of saying Motorsport Games, but it would have to be with historical content. And on that note, like, subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.